Hey everybody, Dr. Rob Silverman here again. How you doing? Back at it on Facebook Live. If you like what you see, this one's great. It's interesting. It works for everybody. It works for the populace. Press share. Share it with everybody if you can. And do me a favor, like it. In addition, this is something that's really going to pertain to you during the holiday season. FYI, I have no problem if you want to enjoy yourself a little in the holiday season. I just had a conversation with a patient, and they said the holiday season is a tough time to diet. Christmas is only 24 hours. So I'll allow you to go off the rail for 24 hours, but not the whole holiday season. Here's one of the biggest culprits. Here's one of the biggest things you should avoid at the holiday season. Sugar. And I'm going to talk about what you didn't know about it. Number one, Americans consume 152 pounds of sugar per year. 152 pounds. It probably weighs more in food, in consumption of sugar, than the average woman does in body weight. We also consume 133 pounds of gluten, wheat, white flour per year. In addition, children consume, biggest issue, 34 teaspoons of sugar daily, what's equivalent to 34 teaspoons of sugar a day. Got to get our sugar consumption down. Sugarcane was first domesticated about 10,000 years ago on the island of New Guinea. So that's where sugarcane came. So it is a natural substance, but the problem is we are synthesizing it and we're consuming it in too much of a high rate. In addition, eating an excessive amount of sugar will lead to, number one, increased triglyceride levels. Triglycerides are blood fat levels. It increases the risk of heart disease. It's sugar, you'll see another bullet there. It's sugar, not fat, that raises cholesterol. In addition, it's sugar that raises inflammation, that leads to oxidative stress, that takes that cholesterol and plaques it against your walls and causes all those heart diseases. So I know that everybody was talking about fat was bad and now fat is good. Good fat is good. Some good quality saturated fats are good. We just don't want to consume large amounts of sugar. It's inflammatory, as I said. It increases cholesterol levels, as I said. It contributes to obesity and diabetes. 40% of American males are obese today, 15% worldwide. 35% of women in America are obese, 11% worldwide. 72% of American men are either obese or overweight, 64% women. 50% of America, I'm a number guy today, by 2030 will have a diabetic problem. Dr. Mark Hyman did a great choice. I think he's the leader, or one of the great leaders of functional medicine. He called us the United States of Diabesity. And finally, the most interesting thing is sugar causes brain degeneration. We're finding out that depression and Alzheimer's are coming from inflammation in the gut and sugar. The gut is attached to the brain. We've talked about that. The walkie-talkie between the two is the vagus nerve. Sugar has a deleterious effect. It decreases brain satiety, the feeling of fullness. Sugar also is 94% more addictive to someone's brain than cocaine in lab mice and rats. 94%. It's that sweet. So let's move on. Let's talk about some stuff. John shook his head about 3 times today. Fructose, which is fruit sugar. They call it the sneaky carb. I'm not really against fruit. It's the sneaky carb. The reason, it goes through facilitated transport to get to your liver and then hits your bloodstream. So we want to eat fruits. We don't want to eat high glycemic index fruits, and we don't want to eat a lot of fruits at one time. The biggest problem with fructose is high fructose corn syrup. 2014, the U.S. government allowed people to relabel food labels either fructose or fructose added, even if it was high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup is up to 20% of our caloric intake daily. So if it's on a food label, just don't eat it. Alters hundreds of brain genes. High fructose corn syrup alters how you think. It negatively affects methylation. Methylation is a key component. Methylation is adding a methyl group onto a cysteine or a guanine group. Those are DNA. So it's changing who you are, it's changing how you think. And methylation, if you're unable to methylate these B vitamins, it leads to a release of histamine, like you get an allergic reaction, and that leads down the road of leaky gut. So there's this whole interesting functional nutrition, functional medicine cascade. So clearly, we want to avoid high fructose corn syrup for overall health. Interesting, 50 minutes of running or 5 miles of walking burns 250 calories and or 16 tablespoons of sugar. You got to move your rear end a lot to get that sugar out. So why not exercise and not consume the sugar? A 20-year study, this was a great takeaway, of 40,000 men revealed consumption of one sugar beverage, one soda per day increased heart attack by 20%, and 2 typically gave everybody obesity and diabetes. Back to the United States of diabetes. Sugar is a toxin. One of my favorite movies, with, leave the garden, take the cannoli. Well, leave the cannoli, take the coffee. Leave the cannoli because it's all sugar with some saturated fats. Drink the organic coffee because it has a positive effect. But don't drink the coffee with the pastry because it'll break down the fatty acids and seep it into your body. So whatever you do, leave the cannoli, take the coffee. A sugar-free food is less than half a gram of sugar per serving. Half a gram. Oh, it's sugar-free. Not necessarily. Look how many servings there are. It could be 50 servings, and therefore you could have 25 grams of sugar. So food labels can be very clever. They are changing the food labels as of 2018, so this won't happen. But in the interim, watch these sugar-free foods. They may not be sugar-free. They keep the serving size down low enough. Sucralose, this is your takeaway, John. Splenda was discovered by accident in 1976 by a scientist who actually tried to create an insecticide. They were creating an insecticide and said, why are all these insects going there? And they look like they're smiling, telling their friends to come hang out, and they all died. He tapped it, he put it in his mouth, and it was sweet, and Splenda was created. Now, interesting thing about Splenda, NutraSweet, Sweet and Low, Equal. Basically, there are 3 different artificial sweeteners there. All 3 artificial sweeteners cause a disruption in blood sugar regulation. They damage your gut microflora. They damage your blood sugar. They actually signal to your brain that there's sweetness, even though they're calorically free. And your body releases insulin. Avoid Sweet and Low, Equal, and stevia. Excuse me, let me say that again. That was wrong. Stevia is fine. Splenda, Sweet and Low, and Equal. Those are the 3. Stevia is actually really, really good. So I want to make that correction. Sorry about that. So a look to the gene future. It's all about gene testing. Ultimately, if you come into me, you'll see that I've transformed my practice. We're testing genes. We're seeing what's going on. The gene future, a look to the future. The genetics of a sweet tooth. People with a certain DNA difference in the SLC-A2 gene crave sugar because it goes to a GLUT2 protein. Not trying to get too technical. Essentially, there are people that have a predisposition that they can't taste sweetness, so they crave more to get the sweet sensation. There are ways to get around that. There are ways to work. About 30% of Americans have this gene at this current rate. And finally, 2016, the new guidelines. I was fortunate enough to be on CBS on January 7th, 2016. Go to my website, drrobertsilverman.com. Vlad did a great job. He's a phenomenal reporter. We had a great 4-minute takeaway. You'll love it, but here are the highlights. Number 1, as I said, CBS News. There was a regional take with Vlad. Consumers should drastically cut back on sugar. The World Health Organization said so. The FDA agreed, and it was in the New York Times on January 7th. They should cut back on sugar. They should cut back to 10% of your total calories should be from sugar. They almost said no calories from sugar, but the sugar industry pressured them, so it's 10%. I don't think we should be eating a lot of cane sugar. We should minimize it at the very lowest levels. In addition, the World Health Organization, almost suggesting totally removing sugar, they also talked about raising or releasing no limit on cholesterol. So when they said there was no limit to cholesterol, they have also signified and reiterated what I said, in that it's sugar, not fat, that raises cholesterol. Cholesterol isn't a problem in ingestion. Cholesterol is a problem when things are oxidized and or inflammation, which comes from sugar. Finally, men and boys should eat less protein. Men and boys should eat less protein. In college, they were finding they were over-consuming because everybody wanted to get more muscular, so they should limit that. And the last takeaway, which I was fortunate enough to be on Wall Street Journal Live last June, was we need to decrease the intake of salt. It was 2,400 milligrams to 1,600, and all that said was, don't add salt to anything. If it comes in salt, fine. Watch your seafoods. Couple of quick things. How do you do it? What are my suggestions? Well, number one, I'm not anti-carb, as everybody knows. I believe in carbs. Eat fruits, but avoid the high glycemic index fruits. Berries, apples, half a peach or pear, I'm good with. Avoid those. Mix them in with foods. So glycemic index is very interesting. Let me give you some takeaways. Most people don't realize this. The glycemic index was made in 1981. It was based on 50 grams of carbohydrates, which is 200 calories. So it may not spike if you're 15 or 20 grams of sugar. It may not spike. Also, the glycemic index is based on the average of what's on your plate. So if you have a protein, you have a vegetable, you have some fat like olive oil or some nuts, and you have a half a baked potato, though that baked potato may be high if it's not made as a resistant starch on the glycemic index, when you put all the food together, you still have an under 50 glycemic index food. So it's not just the food, it's what you eat within the food, it's the timing of the food. Watch your food labels, decrease your sugar, because sugar is a toxin, and 50% of Americans are going to have diabetes by 2030. John, we got any questions?
A couple questions. First one, when you were talking numbers earlier, 40% of Americans are obese. The number is much less abroad. Why do you think that is?
I think we're the leader in getting heavy. I think that 19% of our healthcare cost, 19% of our GDP is our healthcare cost. Worldwide is 6%, directly related to the fact that we're overweight. I think that we have options. I think, I'm not a conspiracy theory. I don't think a government has done a good choice. I think Americans have a mantra that they feel they have to eat to overeat. And I think that sugar may be one of the biggest culprits in the world, and it's one of the most used ingredients in all recipes.
As far as some healthy drink options, like Starbucks has a green drink with fruits and vegetables, generally those have some sugar in them. Is that bad? Should those drinks be avoided?
Well, those green drinks, I mean, I'm a guy who loves a green drink. I think a green drink should probably have 120 calories or less. And those are probably more like what they call naked green, and they're about 240, 280. So look at the caloric intake, including the serving size. Get them close to 120. So my suggestion is 3 or 4 greens, never really high on caloric index or glycemic index. 1 small fruit or half a fruit, like an apple, it's going to be about 120 calories or less. A good choice. If you have to go to 150, that's fine. Or eat it with some protein, like some grilled chicken. Obviously, don't put the grilled chicken in your drink. I meant separately. But if you do that, or have some nuts with it. So when I know I'm having green drinks and fruits, I make sure I have some almonds, raw almonds. And speaking of that, we're going to do a Facebook Live coming up on nuts, how to make them, and how to prepare them. That's something for the future. Guys, they'll love that.
Last one. What would you put in coffee if you wanted it to be a little bit sweeter?
For me, in coffee, it's stevia. Stevia is the choice to go. Or, I'll be honest with you, a good, real, when I say real, coconut milk, a good coconut milk is relatively, or almond milk, they're sweet. So if you can put those in, usually anybody that has any allergies can take one of those. That should be sweet enough. If not, the sweetener in place of stevia would be my choice.
Cool.
Good.
Where can people find you?
Everybody, thank you. Everybody can find me, www.drrobertsilverman.com. You guys got my Facebook, info@drrobertsilverman, 914-287-6464. Don't forget, Inside Out Health, a revolutionary approach to your body, on Amazon. Always yours in health, Dr. Rob.